Good morning, everyone. Almost afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. Please feel free to grab some lunch if you haven't already. Also, make sure you grab some University of Scranton materials to learn a little bit more about the university and about the criminal justice department at the university. My name is Michael Jenkins, and I'll be emceeing the event today. On top of playing MC, I'm an associate professor of criminal justice at the University of Scranton, as well as the executive director of the Center for the Analysis and Prevention of Crime. And it's that center and the work that our students have been doing with community partners that we'll be talking about today. And we're hoping that this will be illustrative of one way that a university can partner with local community groups to help the local community groups meet specific needs that they have. And so again, I thank you all for taking some time out of your busy schedules to be with us today, and I hope that you'll agree that it will be worth your time. Before we get started, I would like to offer a few words of thanks. We've had a lot of support from multiple groups within and outside of the university, and so I'd like to thank our Provost for Academic Affairs, Joe Dreisbach, who sends his regards and would have liked to have been here today, but they're launching and opening a new sports center on campus, and so he's there for those ceremonies on campus. Also our Dean, Brian Conniff, our Chair, Jim Roberts. We have Julie Cohen with us, who many of you have met, who's helped us with many of our relationships with partners in Scranton and the northeastern Pennsylvania region, as well as working with many of you to set up the meeting for today. I'd also like to thank the other faculty members from our department who are in the Center for the Analysis and Prevention of Crime. We have with us today Dr. Ismail Onat. He is our Chief Crime Analyst. And then we also have Dr. Laureen Wolfer, and she serves as our Chief Program Evaluator. We have students with us today, two of whom you'll hear from. We have Elizabeth Scott, Emily Bloom, Madeline Grant, John Sember, and Caroline Landon. And they're our first cohort of student analysts who have worked on some projects with the police department, with the Office of Youth and Family Services, and you'll hear about from two of them today about one specific project with the Scranton Police Department. I would also like to thank Chief Carl Graziano, who is with us, and again, who you'll hear from at the end of today's presentation. He's been a strong supporter and collaborator with us from the beginning. I often say that we would not have started this center if it wasn't for his support and his openness to working with us as kind of the eggheads on the hill, in our ivory tower, working together to try to meet the needs of the Scranton community. And he's representing the many community partners that we're currently working with. And then finally, I'd like to acknowledge the New American Colleges and Universities, again, for helping to organize today's event, as well as Congressman Cartwright's office for helping with some of the details of today's briefing. The University of Scranton is a Catholic and Jesuit university. And in addition to their strong commitment to education, and specifically undergraduate education, they take seriously their mission to create men and women for others, people who see their responsibility in their professions and in their communities as one that goes beyond just a job or an occupation, but rather one that contributes to some greater good in the local community. The university, I believe, has done this well. And I think as evidence of this is a few things. First, we have faculty who are well credentialed and come from the top graduate programs in their fields. We have motivated students who, again, are high-performing, highly motivated, and who have this personal desire to give back and to put their talents to work for the greater good of their communities. And then we have, again, our community collaborators who have the expertise in the field and the willingness to collaborate with an outside institution to allow us to come in and to help them deal with some of the issues that they might be facing. And so with these resources in mind, we launched the Center for the Analysis and Prevention of Crime last July. The center has two main goals. The first is to fill in the gap in this time of criminal justice reform. We know that whether we're talking about policing, prosecution, the way that we imprison individuals, as well as the ways that society works to prevent crime, that our society as a whole is coming together to think of new ways of doing policing and of correcting behavior and of trying to prevent crime. And so we believe that through the Center for the Analysis and Prevention of Crime, that we can work with these outside agencies to sit down with them, to help them ask the right questions, to get the right data, to answer those questions, and then to analyze those data in a way that gives them some feedback on what they're doing right and how they could be doing some things a little bit better. The second goal of the center, again, with these resources in mind, the students that we have, the faculty that we have, and the willingness of our local collaborators, we want it to be able to offer our undergraduate students a hands-on, experiential learning process by which they are giving back to the community and also getting some, as much as we don't like to say this in higher education, marketable skill, right? Something that will make them marketable when it comes time to apply to graduate school, to apply to law school, to try to get hired by a local police department, applying to the state police, whatever career paths they might have. The skills that they're getting in crime analysis and in data analysis in the crime center can be transferred to the various sectors that they will eventually end up in. And so in just the less than a year that we've been in operation, I believe that we've already done quite a bit in the center. We started off with a local training for 25 criminal justice and social service practitioners, and this training was a day-long, really a seminar. We use the term training because that's what criminal justice professionals like to hear, but it was a seminar in which we introduced practitioners to some of the introductory concepts behind evidence-based practice. We also gave them some basic tools for creating an evidence base in their own practice so they could reflect on the practice that they're doing and again, think about how through the analysis of data they could be doing their practice a little bit more. We have multiple collaborations with the Office of Youth and Family Services where we are evaluating some of the programs that they're offering for families in Lackawanna County. And again, working with them to decide what are the questions that they have as the Office of Youth and Family Services and how could we apply our skills as faculty and students to help them answer those questions. We've submitted multiple reports to local police departments, including crime analysis reports, like one of the reports that you'll see today, as well as some shift distribution reports, so looking at how personnel are allocated throughout the work week. Two of the students, John Sember and Caroline Landon, worked on an evaluation of the crisis intervention team training. Crisis intervention team training is a training for mostly first responders, mostly police, as a way of helping police better respond to situations in which people might be presenting with signs of mental illness. So we know, we've seen all the reports, we've seen some of the videos about how oftentimes these situations are very volatile and oftentimes very dangerous. And so this week-long training for police gives them tools and changes behavior, attitudes as it relates to their treatment of individuals who might be in some form of mental crisis. And our evaluation, again, that we just recently concluded, looked very favorably upon this crisis intervention team training, and we were able to present the results of our findings to the local community. As a result of the findings of that report, the local DA has agreed to try to institute this training across Lackawanna County. And then finally, the project that you'll hear about now from the students, a project in which they, again, sat down with the police chief, said, listen, we have this desire to help, we have these skills in crime analysis, how could we help you? And they'll talk a little bit about that iterative process of defining questions and working on data analysis. But let me just tell you, as someone who did nothing on this project except help facilitate the collaboration and put people in touch and then kind of step back, I was blown away when I was able to attend the students' presentation to the burglary unit in the Scranton Police Department. I was blown away not only by their presentation skills and their ability to put together a coherent and persuasive and analytical report, but more importantly, from the Scranton Police Department's perspective, the detectives themselves were blown away by the students' analysis and what they were able to tell them about the nature of the burglary problem in Scranton. And I recall, I was sitting in the back and just kind of taking it all in and observing, and I remember hearing the detectives use words like superheroes to describe our students. That they were astounded at the level of detail and information that the students were able to get from the few reports that they got from the Scranton Police Department. So without further ado, I will turn it over to the stars of the show, Ms. Elizabeth Scott and Ms. Emily Bloom, who will talk about that collaboration with the Scranton Police Department.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Jenkins, for the warm introduction. I am Liz Scott. I'm a senior at the University of Scranton. I am a criminal justice major and a psychology minor.
My name is Emily Bloom. I'm a junior at the University of Scranton. I'm a criminal justice major with minors in computer science and criminology.
And also here with us today is Madeline Grant. She's also a research associate with us, and she's also a criminal justice major. We are here today because we wanted to share the work that we've been doing alongside the Scranton Police Department, which was made possible through the guidance of our professors and the education that we received at the University of Scranton. This is how hopefully this works. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we wanted to begin this presentation by kind of letting you know who we are and explaining our journey as undergraduates at the University of Scranton. When I talk about my experience at the University of Scranton, it's your typical cheesy story, I will admit, but I'm always excited to talk about it. When I first stepped on campus, I immediately felt like I was part of a community. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I knew I was excited to be there. My freshman year, I was originally a forensic chemistry major. I took a couple courses in criminal justice, and I just wasn't really sure where I wanted to go with my life or where I wanted to go with my career. So I reached out to criminal justice professors and advisors, and I sat down with them and I said, hey, I really like criminal justice, I'm just not sure where I want to go with it. They put me on the right path, and I declared criminal justice as a major. It wasn't until my junior year that I took a class with Dr. Onat and for environmental criminology. He introduced to me what crime analysis is, and I fell in love with it. I knew that was my passion, and I wanted to stick with it.
During my own freshman year at the University of Scranton, my goal was to determine whether I wanted to stay in the criminal justice program, which was my declared major coming into the university. After loving all of my introductory courses, my task now was figuring out what career path I wanted to pursue in this field. It wasn't until my sophomore year that I reached out to my criminal justice professors and my academic advisor, inquiring what career options I had if becoming a lawyer, a police officer, or a correctional officer did not appeal to me. It was during that time that I took an environmental criminology course, which sparked my interest and my eventual passion in the practice of crime analysis.
Okay, so the past 3 semesters were very essential for us to be able to do this research that we're presenting here today. We took 3 courses throughout those 3 semesters that made this possible. The first course we're going to talk about is environmental criminology. This examines the environment of a crime. When we talk about the environment of a crime, we mean the space that the crime occurred in. For example, if a crime were to occur in this room right now, we would analyze this room, but not only this direct room, we would analyze the building and the entire street or block. Also in environmental criminology, we don't like to only focus on the offender. The second course that we took was crime analysis. This is the introduction course for the entire idea of crime analysis. We learn about the different forms of analysis that one can conduct, and most importantly, we learn how to create tabular data by looking at incident reports. This course is very important to be able to take the third course, which is GIS for public safety. This is my personal favorite course. I just want to point out that usually this course is not offered at the undergraduate level, so for me to be able to take it right before I graduate at the end of this month was super exciting. In this course, we learn how to operate the ArcGIS software, which is important for us putting the incidents into that software to map out and hopefully find patterns in crime. So we're here today because we're going to talk about crime analysis. I'm sure most of you are, what is crime analysis? This is the systematic tool for analyzing and comparing data. Comparing data is very important. So when we compare data on file with those on current cases, it gives patrol officers very important information on criminal activity in their beat area. Crime analysis supports a number of department functions. This includes administration services, investigations, special operations, planning, research, and crime prevention. How did this all begin? So Dr. Jenkins gave a brief introduction of how this began. So the University of Scranton professors started the KPOC Center in order to teach students skills that they could utilize in the real world. So we have this center, and then together we put together a little small analyst unit of students and professors, and we wanted to apply our knowledge that we've been learning in the classroom to our community. So we reached out to Chief Graziano, and he was welcoming and allowed us to meet with him. And we sat down with him and said, can we analyze a reoccurring crime problem for you? He took a chance on us, and he allowed us to analyze burglary cases in Scranton. Because there are multiple forms of burglary, we decided to focus on only non-residential burglaries. Non-residential burglaries are burglaries that don't occur at a home of a victim. We decided to perform a tactical analysis. Tactical analysis is better suited when we're looking at data that has occurred within the past year. The average time frame for a tactical analysis is only 6 months. So when we do a tactical analysis, we look at the space of the crime. This goes back to environmental criminology, so we look at the entire environment surrounding each incident. Then we like to look at the time that the crime occurred in. So not only the time of day, but this includes the time of week, time of month, the season, all time. Then we look at both the offender and the victim at every single incident. And for sometimes there's multiple offenders and multiple victims, and we have to analyze every single one. Then we try to identify repeat incidents and hopefully crime patterns. So during this whole research project, we had 2 phases of analysis. During the first phase of our analysis, the Scranton Police Department provided us 150 incident reports ranging from June 2017 to November 2017, so 6 months worth of data. Out of this 150 incident reports, we identified 33 that shared similar characteristics, and they were also all non-residential burglaries. With those incidents, we were able to make our tabular data matrix. We use that to put it into the ArcGIS system, which is more of an interactive database. And then we mapped those incidents. We identified certain patterns and trends, and that way we were able to apply certain criminological theories. We identified 3 potential crime patterns during the first phase of our analysis. The first crime pattern was a cluster of burglaries in northern Scranton on Tuesday around midnight. The second pattern we identified was another cluster of burglaries targeting eateries on Capouse Avenue. And then the third potential pattern was also in central Scranton, targeting convenience stores during the weekends. Thank you.
The logic behind these patterns originates from criminal justice theories, which we've studied through our undergraduate courses. Geographic profiling is the basis for all of these theories. The process behind geographic profiling involves analyzing locations connected to a series of crimes. This looks at the area where the offender resides in and focuses the investigation to a smaller area of the community. The 4 main theories essential to this process are journey to crime, rational choice, routine activity, and crime pattern. The journey to crime theory states that offenders are more likely to commit crime in a familiar area to them. This is due to the notion that familiarity provides a feeling of safety for the offender. Most offenders will not travel further than 2 miles to commit a crime. Therefore, according to this theory, it is very likely that the offenders of our analyzed burglary incidents live in the general area of those targeted locations. The premise behind the rational choice theory is that crime is purposive behavior designed to meet an offender's needs for money, status, and excitement. Individuals are trying to advance their own personal goals within the confines of certain constraints, such as their ability to commit a crime and their limitations when committing crime. Because people have the ability to make rational choices, this theory asserts that crime is calculated and deliberate. As a result, the least effort principle in this theory states that offenders will seize the first or closest crime opportunity that will personally benefit them. The routine activity theory states that crime will not occur unless three elements converge in space and time. These three elements are a motivated offender, an attractive target, and the absence of a capable guardian to protect this target. A motivated offender is an individual who is capable and willing to commit crime. An attractive target is a person or object that is seen as vulnerable, and a capable guardian is a person or object that is effective in deterring crime. Crime opportunities are created when these three elements encounter each other at the same time and place. This can occur during everyday activities such as when people are on their way to work or when they are out running errands. Lastly, the crime pattern theory asserts that crime is not a random occurrence. It is in fact planned or opportunistic. The route that a person takes to and from their everyday activities creates a perimeter known as that individual's awareness space. Similar to the thought process behind routine activity, crime pattern theory asserts that a crime will occur if the awareness space of an offender and the awareness space of a target overlap. All of these theories were applied to our analysis in order to determine our identified crime patterns. The rational choice theory asserts that crime is calculated and deliberate. This supports the first pattern we found of burglaries occurring in northern Scranton, which all occurred on a Tuesday, saying that these crimes happening on a Tuesday was a non-coincidental occurrence. Routine activity theory states that a crime will occur if there is no guardian present to protect an attractive target. Our team found through our analysis that most of these burglarized businesses did not have a working security system or camera, and that most of these burglaries occurred during the closed hours of the businesses, therefore leaving these locations unprotected and vulnerable. The journey to crime and crime pattern theory support the idea that these offenders live in the general area since they do not travel far to commit crime. Therefore, based on these theories of crime science, our research findings imply that it was the same offender or group of offenders that have committed all of these burglary incidents who would live in the general area of these targeted locations. Throughout our entire time working in this analysis, we've met several times with members of the Scranton Police Department, including Chief Graziano, in order to discuss what each party wanted in terms of our collaboration.
After the first phase of our analysis, we presented our findings to the Scranton Burglary Unit. We also presented our maps and our potential crime patterns. They were extremely interested in what we've shown them, and then they asked us to analyze another consecutive 3 months of data. So this is the second phase of our analysis. When the second phase started, they gave us reports ranging from December 2017 to March 2018. So that is the consecutive 3 months. Throughout those incidents, we identified another 10 incidents that shared those similar characteristics that we have already previously analyzed during the first phase. We put those 10 incidents into our tabular data matrix, then also put it into the GIS software. We mapped it out, and then we found that 2 of our original crime patterns were supported. So this is one of the maps that we made and presented to the Scranton Police Department. This is a map of Scranton. In the red circle, that is northern Scranton. Those are the Tuesday burglaries, and there are 7 of them, and they were all high monetary gains. In central Scranton, this is the second pattern that was supported. In the blue circle, that is Caphouse Avenue. There were also 7 non-residential incidents that all occurred on that same street targeting eateries. We then took this map and applied it to a public pattern bulletin. A public pattern bulletin is basically a flyer that we could hand out to the community, basically to make them aware of what's going on. So this flyer we made for the Scranton Police Department in hopes that it could be administered to the community. We put the map on there, that is a map of Scranton. It also includes the streets and where the incidents are. The bulletin also includes what the actual crime patterns are and explains them a little bit more in depth. I know in the map the incidents look kind of far away from each other, but in reality they're only less than a mile away on average. It explains both patterns, and then it also includes preventive measures that can be taken and numbers to call if you see anything or if you yourself are a victim. So that was the second phase of our analysis, and looking back on the past 9 months, I'm extremely excited to be here. I'm honored to be here. If you told me a year ago I'd be talking to you all, I wouldn't believe it. We have definitely learned so many new things. We had great experiences, especially working with the Scranton Police Department and with our professors. I think the relationship that we have all connected with the community is not only on an individual level, but as a whole university.
We've improved our skills in terms of teamwork, data analysis, and public speaking. The development of our ArcGIS knowledge has progressed to the point where each of us feels comfortable navigating the software independently. As a result, we feel like the skills that we've learned through this project will benefit us through the rest of our time at the University of Scranton and will enable us to stride into our future careers with confidence. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very well done. And I instructed the students to put together a presentation that would show they know what they're talking about. And I think they did that really well, so much so that they pretty much condensed an entire semester's worth of learning into that 20-minute presentation. And so you could collect your tuition bills on the way out and submit them by the end of the week to the University of Scranton. That was really well done, and again, I think really showcases the level of skill that they are getting from these undergraduate programs at the University of Scranton. And really, again, we'll let the chief comment on this, but our takeaway from the university perspective is really having an impact, some practical impact on the local community, right? So informing not only the Scranton Police Department and how they're going to be able to better tackle these repeat offenses, but also the community members so that they could take their own steps to prevent themselves from being victimized. We know that crime prevention is the responsibility of all of us, right? Police as well as the community. And so thank you again for that presentation. We will end with Chief Carl Graziano from the Scranton Police Department.
Good afternoon. First, I'd just like to thank Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Anat, University of Scranton for their partnerships, and certainly the students. As you can see, that was a great presentation, and they worked very hard over the course of a semester, and it's really about building relationships and partnering, and it's greatly appreciated from the citizens of Scranton. So the University of Scranton and the City of Scranton have had strong partnerships for many years. And the University of Scranton has a wide footprint in the City of Scranton, and it's an ever-evolving footprint that the city supports and the city will support going forward. That's not always the case in other cities where universities exist, and when the university exists near downtown, and I could say wholeheartedly and strongly that the case in Scranton is that we have very positive relationships, and really the University of Scranton, in my opinion, is the jewel of the city. And I can't say enough about their support. Anything that they endeavor, all of their students, whatever they do, whatever projects they take on is first class and very professional. So I'd say we've had a the police department has had a non-informal relationship with the criminal justice program with the city of Scranton, with the University of Scranton for many years. That's with sharing applications for grant applications, partnering with interns in the police department, and networking together. Now we have a very formal relationship with the Center for Crime Analysis and the students, and that is a great partnership that I can't say enough good things about. So we signed a formal memorandum of understanding for the University of Scranton and the City of Scranton that was approved by the university, was approved by our City Council, approved and widely supported by our mayor and government, so that we can collaborate on a real-time and historical basis with the University of Scranton. and that's with supplying incident reports, sometimes real-time incident reports up to the minute, that we can supply to them to analyze data. You know, from a police perspective, police officers are good at investigating crimes, processing crime scenes, making arrests, and being engaged in prosecutions. They're not very good at analyzing data and analyzing statistics. And that's where that partnership comes in. And that's where the experts are here. And the students that are partnering with the professors, the experts in crime analysis, are really helping not only themselves, you know, for their future, but also helping the citizens of Scranton. And that's a partnership that every city should engage in with your local universities. And it's in a partnership, as long as I'm with the department, that we will strive to improve upon. And that memorandum of understanding is beneficial to both parties. And you can see the hard work that the students put into the presentation, and there's more programs to come. This is one simple, not simple, it's a very intricate program that you can see the results from, and we're utilizing those results. So the students are benefiting of getting the experience of getting, instead of sitting in a crime lab or sitting in a computer lab looking at statistics from years ago or making up statistics to use for analytical purposes, they're utilizing real-time statistics, real-time crime data that is helping them to, with their process, and helping us to solve crimes and to prevent crimes and to be more effective, more efficient in our operations. And that goes too for the other partners that they've partnered with, the other collaborations, the CIT program, the Office of Youth and Family Services. Many of those organizations are very good at what they do. They are very good at what they do. But many times it takes someone to step back and look and analyze, is what we're doing working? Is what we're doing going to be working in the future? And that's where this comes in. That's where this partnership comes in. And it's a partnership that, while they're paying great tuition at the University of Scranton, well, it's a partnership between the collaborators that we wouldn't be able to afford. If the city of Scranton had to hire a crime analyst or start a crime analysis unit, it wouldn't be something that we could support. But it is something that we can share resources with our local universities, and that's what we're doing. And it's greatly appreciated on what the university has done and what they do for the community. And it's really the result of, as Dr. Jenkins said, they're motivated students. Not only have the students motivated, they have motivated my officers to become more involved in their investigations, because, as I said, they now can sit back and say, you know, we're working a case by case by case, and then sometimes you got to look, take a step back and analyze the data and see where were we, where are we, and where do we need to go. And that's the collaboration that's happening here. And again, it's greatly appreciated, and I can't say enough. And that's why I'm here, is to thank them for what they've done, and to look forward to the future of what we could do together. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chief Graziano. One last point of note, if you didn't come out in the presentations, the students worked on this outside of the classroom, so this was not part of any one classroom assignment. As they mentioned, they took the progression of courses as we anticipated for the crime analysis background, but they did all of the work for these projects and through the Crime Center outside of any classroom requirements. And so again, speaks highly to their level of dedication and desire to work to benefit the community. So again, thank you all for your words and your presentation. And I think we could turn now to a question and answer if you have any questions from the audience.
Can you talk a little bit about where the crimes are occurring? I think up here on the Hill, we talk a lot about federal policy around campus crime versus community crime, and whether or not this project addressed the differences between things that were happening on campus versus the community, and how the local police might work with campus crime, campus police on some of those issues.
Sure, I think Dr. Onak could probably answer that. Yeah, sure, given his experience.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Ismail Onat. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Scranton, Criminal Justice Department. So when it comes to crime, there are two different jurisdictions in Scranton. There is University of Scranton Campus Police and the Scranton Police Department. For this particular project, we just looked at burglary incidents, and based on in another project, the Scranton Police Department provided our center with the data, and we figured out that in just 2016 there were around 60,000 50,000 calls for service in the city, and it's different types of behavior, not only the burglaries and other stuff. And we also worked the University of Scranton Police Department separately, and then and Elizabeth Scott was involved in this project as well, and we've tried to figure out what type of behavior is more frequent on the University of Scranton campus, and where the incidents repeated and at what time. So again, the center has multiple projects that are going on at the same time. This is one part of the story. And we usually try to approach to the incidents based on different behaviors. When it comes to where the incidents usually occur, especially those northern, in this project, those northern Scranton burglary cases, they fell outside of, so to speak, we can say the hot spots of the crimes in Scranton. The hot spots are the all crimes are clustering in a different area in Scranton than the pattern area. So that kind of supports the idea that one or a couple of people are responsible for those crimes that is away from the hotspots places. I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
You have a question?
Yes, yes. One for the police officer. Do most police departments have a crime analysis unit, or they don't?
Some of the larger departments do that have significant budgets, but we're considered a medium-sized police department, and certainly nobody in northeastern Pennsylvania, where we're from here, has that at all. So this was really a first for our area to have essentially the resources available to us, other than our normal records management systems, which does very basic, low-level crime analysis.
And to the students, is this what you do then when you graduate? You join a crime analysis unit, or is there something else that you?
That's our hope, right? I'm attending grad school in the fall to further learn about crime analysis. So you can join a crime analysis team and at a larger department, and that's our personal goal, and that's what this research is for, is to give us that experience and that skill to be able to apply for certain positions.
So who does this line of work for the police departments that don't have a crime analysis unit?
Either it's not done at all, or it's done on a very low basis with very basic crime analytical software in-house. And that's where the issue arises, where sometimes we get stuck in a silo in a policing department, and we're missing the bigger picture. And this is really about looking at the bigger picture and taking a step back and analyzing everything from the weather, the time of day, the location, and really where officers get bogged down with cases, and they run from case to case to case, and sometimes you don't realize, unless it's obvious, that there's a crime pattern here that exists, and that's where this really is beneficial.
Yeah, so I wanted to know, did a pattern exist that did not fit within these 4 theories?
The third pattern that we discussed during the first phase, so that we did identify a third pattern during the first phase of analysis, and that was a pattern during those first 6 months. But when we analyzed the further 3 months, it wasn't fully supported, so we didn't want to present it because those other 10 incidents didn't really go with that third pattern. But during the first phase, there was that third pattern, the first 6 months.
Chief, can you discuss a little bit what impact that mental health training that was mentioned earlier had on your department? Have you seen kind of a payoff there? What has that meant for the officers, and what has that meant for the community?
It's probably, we started our program in 2000, end of 2010, 2011, following a critical incident where we had shot and killed an individual with a knife who was mental health issues. Our program started modeled after the Memphis Police Department, the Memphis model, and since 2011 through 2017, the latest data, our use of force incidents have dropped 66%. The only thing that's done significantly changed in those 6-7 years has been the institution of the CIT program. So in my opinion, and that's some of the statistics that the Crime Analysis Center is analyzing and will be analyzing, it really has had an indirect and a direct effect, positive effect on reducing use of force between the police and the community.
How many ongoing projects do you have at any one given time with the university and with different students? And then I have to ask, because I'm sure everybody is wondering the same thing, did you catch the burglars as well? Did the data analysis help?
Data analysis did help. There was one arrest made, not necessarily because of the data analysis, but there is a suspect identified for these particular incidents. Yes.
And then I guess the first question is, how many ongoing projects do you have? What's the scope of the work between the university and the school?
For the police department, so we did the personnel analysis for chief, and also the burglary analysis. And then have you done any others for the Scranton Police Department? So just the two that I've already referenced. And again, that's been since July, since we did that. But we have other projects with the Office of Youth and Family Services, with the Advocacy Alliance, which is a behavioral health umbrella organization that is in charge of different other agencies in Lackawanna County, and then also our own campus police.
Once the police department gets the analysis done, what steps do they take to act differently than they did before?
Well, what we did, I could say from this analysis, so these particular analysis for these non-residential burglaries in our north end were occurring on our midnight shift between, a 4-hour block of, so we were able then we actually put together non-uniform burglary details to go into those areas and to notify our midnight shift about here's where these concentrations of burglaries are happening in this less than 1 mile radius, and here's the times that it's occurring. So they were now more, and we gave them the details of the common specifics of those particular crimes and what to look for. So that information they didn't have before. Now that's not to say that they apprehended the person in progress of the burglaries, which is very rare, by the way, to do that. But they had that information available to them that they didn't have before, so it raised the odds of them of possibly apprehending the perpetrator with the crime in progress.
Anything with the statistics, crime analysis, with the underlying statistics of the crime analysis is always about probabilities, right? So either increasing the probability of whatever outcome of interest that you're trying to do. So that's what it's always about. If we're evaluating a program, we're looking at the likelihood that the program had some effect on the outcome of police use of force or on changing behaviors about individuals with mental illness, as we did with the crisis intervention team training.
So follow-up question, are there federal funds available, or what's sort of the cost-benefit analysis? I'd imagine it's probably easier for you guys to sort of fill the gaps in, especially where campuses across the country for smaller departments that don't necessarily have their own unit.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that, because it goes back to the earlier question about, do police departments have this? I believe there's a 1994 crime bill in which there's a section in there in which they support the use of a full-time crime analyst for police departments, right? That we should be funding these positions, these civilian positions in police departments. We obviously have not gotten there. And so one of the ways that we're filling that gap is with university professionals. There's the International Association of Crime Analysts, IACA, and so there's a database online that police chiefs can go to look for crime analysts in their geographic area who could collaborate with them on offering this level of analysis, again, if they don't have someone full-time to do that. So certainly there could be more funding out there. There had been a push in the past for that. I know Senator Casey's office had supported a few years back similar types of crime analysis collaborations among agencies. And so again, the university partner would be a good institution to kind of collaborate the data and the data analysis for those agencies. It doesn't have to just come from an individual police department. The other form of support would be individual research grant support, which we have applied for different funding streams through the NIJ, the National Institute of Justice, as well as some of the Pennsylvania Crime Commission funds. Again, as a way of, at least short term, supporting the crime analysis work of our center. Always room for more funding, though. In this center, I'm sure you're all here for different interests, but one of the, I think, benefits to the center model that we've created is that we do want to do things long-term. We want to have long-term relationships that are not dependent upon research funding, which is maybe 1, 2, or 3 years max, because obviously applying for that funding, it takes away your time, and then it shortens the length of your collaboration. And so we thought that establishing these long-term partnerships between local agencies is something that would be a better benefit to the university and the community. So we don't want to be tied to the research funding, but that's the nature of it. And so one of the ways that we're doing that is with individual contract work with different agencies. And so that helps fund all the students at a minimum get a stipend or paid hourly, which again was another important aspect of the center, was to be able to offer to undergraduate students some level of compensation for their work. Other questions?
We've talked earlier about how this might work in terms of reform down the road. And if this center has other goals kind of looking forward, maybe you can talk to that a little bit.
Sure. So yeah, one of the founding goals of the center was with this eye towards, we're reforming criminal justice across the board. And there seems to be some agreement across the political spectrum that this is necessary. So whether you're looking at the use of bail at the local level, which keeps people behind bars simply because they're poor, or you're looking at police use of force incidents or crime prevention efforts by police departments, whether you're looking at prosecutorial decisions, judicial decisions about sentencing and trying to really decarcerate, right? So this movement towards decarceration with the fact that the United States has more people in prison than any other country on the face of the earth. Yes, the center does hope and has, I think, in our work so far, offered the data analysis, the evaluation of data that these agencies have to help them streamline efforts, to help them focus on certain areas that are having a better impact. And so one of the things we know is that these public agencies, whether it be criminal justice agencies or social service agencies, they have a lot of data. And a lot of times they even have nice, fancy databases and computer programs that could help them pull the data and use the data. But, as Chief said, they don't have training in data analysis because they're trained to be good police officers or good social workers. And so that's where we come in to say, listen, what do you have? What questions do you have? How can we match up the questions you have to improve your practice with the data that you have? How can we give you feedback about what other data you might want to collect? And then how can we analyze those data to, again, just give you one level of further information, a clear picture of the problem that you're trying to tackle as it might relate to some larger reform at the local level. We know that local criminal justice practice is a local endeavor. And so if we're going to have change, yes, we could have examples in funding streams from the federal government, but it's going to take part the agency by agency, county by county basis across the United States. And so that's where, again, these local partnerships between higher ed institutions and public agencies could really help move conversations and clarify some of the issues that we're really facing. Anybody want to share their interest in why you showed up today in terms of what you were hoping to get out of it, and if there's anything else that we could offer in terms of, again, we were thinking that you might be interested in that collaboration, higher ed institutions with public agencies, might be interested in the undergraduate experiences. A lot of times the value of higher education is being called into question, and I think you'll see here that they're certainly doing a lot and getting a lot out of their education. Criminal justice, for that matter, right, has come under a lot of fire and a lot of criticism in the last few years. And so, again, this idea that for Chief Graziano to open up his police department really says a lot about him and his desire to try to do the right thing, keeping in mind that when you ask questions, right, as objective outsiders as we are as researchers, the answers that you might get may not be favorable to the work that you're doing. So again, it's about establishing that relationship in a way that is above board, is transparent in what we can offer agencies and the ways that we could present findings that we're never going to try to run to the local newspaper to say how terrible an agency is, but we are going to share that information with the agency and say, here's what you might want to do based on some of our findings.
Hi there. I am here because I am interested in this partnership component. I actually work at the After School Alliance, so we are focused on younger populations, but I'm exploring the idea of partnerships between after-school programs and law enforcement. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you guys have learned in this experience that might translate to perhaps the value in starting these partnerships at a younger age, or kind of any insight you've gained on that.
I think, in law enforcement, police officer, you're talking about the engagement between law enforcement and the youth?
After school programs for like any age, basically below college, so K to 12.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, when we're talking about, well, that's a whole other program. But I think right now we're at a critical stage with juveniles in our country as far as their propensity of the violence crimes that is occurring. So I think anytime we can have any type of programs, and we need to get back to basics that happened 40, 50 years ago, where there was an influx of after-school programs and day programs during summer. I know we engage in that quite readily and handily. We run summer camps for our youth. We're involved in our schools readily. We have officers that are engaged in homework programs at our low-income housing projects after schools. They attend daycares and read to the children. They attend schools and read to the children. They're involved with their organizations as much as we possibly can be, and we're hoping that that'll pay off dividends in the future. So the answer is 100% yes. I think we need a lot more of that and a lot more of those collaborations, and especially between law enforcement and our youth, because I think that's where the divide right now is probably the greatest it's ever been, and I think we need to narrow that back again.
And as a research institution, I would add, get a research partner up front, because they're going to help you structure the data collection methods in a way that is going to give you the best answers. And really what it comes down for the agencies is you're probably seeking outside funding, and we know that increasingly funders are looking for numbers, right? How many people are you servicing? What impact is it having? And so having that outside group from a local research institution, I think is very helpful to you as an agency to do that.
Are you familiar with any other universities that offer some similar partnerships with their criminal justice students?
Yeah, without a doubt. I would say, though, that a lot of the universities that have this level of collaboration are doing it through their graduate programs. And so that's kind of what I think is a unique characteristic of what we're doing, is we've really, because of our own experiences in these graduate programs or in other graduate programs, we're trying to scale that down, really not even scaling it down, just applying it to the undergraduate level. And so they're really doing graduate level work with some of this based on the rest of the field and how these universities do it. So it is common, but again, it's more common at the graduate level. And then a lot of times, again, about the center structure that we have, at the graduate level, it's usually going to be grad students who are going in to get their dissertation or their master's thesis. And so they go in, they get data, they do something with it, and then they're done. We're trying to do something long-term with our partners through the undergraduate center structure, where we have a steady stream of capable undergraduate students who, again, they're their first cohort. We're hoping that we have a sophomore here with us and some juniors, that next year or the year after that they will take on first and second year students and helping to mentor them within this student analyst program to take away some of the hands-on stuff that we're doing as faculty. So again, that is unique to the undergraduate level, but the collaboration is certainly there at graduate levels across the country.
So when you go to graduate school, this partnership continues with the police department?
Well, so our collaboration, the center at the University of Scranton, will continue with the police department. We're hoping that as they go on to the graduate school, their own graduate schools will have some level of collaboration with local agencies. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, feel free to stay afterwards and ask anything you might have. Thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you.
And feel free to contact us.